Hello everyone and welcome to the local campaign. I'm Francis D'Souza from CityNews. On October 19th, Canada will elect the 42nd Parliament, and Rogers TV is the only station producing debates of all of Toronto's 25 ridings. For the next hour, you're going to be hearing from the candidates of Davenport. 2015 marks the beginning of electoral riding redistribution, so boundaries in the majority of ridings have changed, along with some riding names. So before we introduce the candidates, let's get a closer look at the riding of Davenport.
The riding of Davenport is bordered on the north by Eglinton Avenue West, with the southern tip extending to just north of King Street. The western border snakes along two separate GO transit rail lines, with the jog east at Rogers Road. On the west, the border includes portions of Dovercourt Road, Ossington Avenue, Winona Drive, and Dufferin Street. Within this riding are the neighborhoods of Fairbank, Oakwood Vaughan, Brockton Village, Dovercourt Village, Corso Italia, St. Clair Gardens, Bloordale, and Bloorcourt villages. Recognizable landmarks include Dufferin Mall, Dufferin Grove Park, and the Bloor Gladstone Library. The incumbent MP in this riding is NDP member Andrew Cash.
And now it's time to meet the candidates. Each will have 1 minute to make their opening statement. This will be done in order of the most seats by party in the House of Commons. So we begin first with the incumbent, Andrew Cash of the NDP. Andrew.
Hi, well, it's been such an honor to be the Member of Parliament in Davenport over the last 4.5 years. And you know, Canada's cultural diversity is a lived experience in Davenport 24/7, and I couldn't think of a better place to live and to raise my family than right in the riding. And you know, we've been able to accomplish so much in these last 4.5 years. We've lowered the cost of living for many people, especially seniors. We've brought in protections for precarious workers, especially unpaid interns. And we fought and defended and promoted the vital arts and culture sector. In our riding, I'm so excited and proud of our platform. We can, with Tom Mulcair, finally bring in affordable childcare at no more than $15 per day. We can raise seniors out of poverty. We can be a leader in the fight against global climate change, and at home, we can be a partner with the cities as we make historic investments in housing and public transit.
Thank you, Andrew. Next, we move to the Liberal candidate, Julie Dzerowicz.
Thanks so much, Francis. The kind of Canada and the kind of community that we have in Davenport will be determined by the outcome of this election. My grandparents came to Canada in the 1950s. They were broken people after World War II, and they were looking for a safe place to rebuild their lives. They came to Canada because it represented freedom, progress, opportunity, fairness, and compassion. And this is the Canada that I want to live in. The core of the Liberal platform is about progress and opportunity, and that's why we have a historic infrastructure plan that is going to create jobs over the next 10 years. We also want to put money back into the middle class pockets, because we know how expensive life is today in terms of gas, in terms of food, in terms of just all life choices. And so we will put money back immediately in addition to additional dollars for Canada Child Benefit. The core of the platform is also about fairness and compassion. And that's why we're finally going to give respect for our First Nations, support for our seniors, as well as honoring our veterans.
Thank you, Julie.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Let's meet our next candidate, Dan Stein from the Green Party.
Hi there. My name is Dan Stein, and I'm your Green candidate in Davenport. I live in Davenport with my wife and my 5-year-old son, and I ran last year, so you might have been familiar with me from the provincial campaign. What I'd like to ask you as a potential voter is to really consider your choice this election, and to consider the need to grow a real alternative to the mainstream parties that are on offer. The Green Party of Canada offers something very unique, policies that in terms of social justice, infrastructure, jobs, and climate change that are really distinct from what the other two main parties that you're going to be able to choose from in this election have on offer. So help me, join with me and my supporters in growing the Green Party in Davenport, and let's really change Canada for the better.
Okay, thank you, Dan. And let's meet our independent candidate, Chai Kalevar.
Thank you, Francis. Hi, guys. I'm running as an independent because I am not satisfied with all the current parties that are there. And these are the three parties. I actually like them. I'm not even thinking of the fourth one. The reason we have trouble on the 42nd election is because in the last three elections, the main parties, NDP and Liberals, couldn't work out a deal to keep Harper out of the office. Their rivalry has got us Harper for a whole decade. On 28th of November 2005, they had a chance with Paul Martin and Jack Layton to get proportional representation. They didn't do that, and we got Harper. And we might get him again if they don't act up. Thank you.
Thank you, Chai. And I also want to let you know that we did invite the other candidates in this riding to participate. Carlos Oliveira from the Conservative Party and Miguel Figueroa from the Communist Party of Canada, and they both declined. Well, let's begin now our question and answer period of the debate. So each candidate will have 30 seconds to answer the question, and then everyone will be able to respond in an open debate afterwards. The first person to answer will be chosen at random. So let's begin first with the question, and this is it. It is on immigration, and it's certainly a hot topic in this election. Davenport has a proud immigration history, and the majority of its residents were born outside of Canada. Currently, Canada accepts 250,000 immigrants every year, the highest intake per capita in the world. The present government has focused on skilled migrants chosen for what they can contribute to the economy. So would you advocate changing our current approach to immigration? And Dan, let's begin with you from the Green Party.
Sure, thanks, Francis. Well, I think that one of the problems with the skilled immigrant program is that we're bringing in people with skills, but we're not really matching them up with areas where there needs to be jobs. And secondly, we're not helping them with the accreditation process, if that's the right use of the word, but we're not making sure that they can work in their field of their expertise. So the Green Party really wants to address those two issues when it comes to the current immigration program we have.
Okay, Chai, let's hear from you next.
Well, surely the immigration program is not working for immigrants, because I see many doctors, lawyers driving taxis. Obviously, that's not what we bring them here for. But what is worse is some of the better jobs that are available in Canada, we are not training enough Canadians for those jobs. It is irresponsible of the government to not allow young Canadians to rise up to the jobs that are in Canada.
Okay, Andrew, you're next.
Well, this is a great question. You know, I've been talking often to members of the community. In fact, I had a call recently from a woman who is an immigrant herself, and her children were born here and they have dual citizenship, and she is outraged at the fact that because of Bill C-24, her kids could be deemed second-class citizens in Canada. So in answering your question, I think what we first have to do is put family back at the core of our immigration system. We need to dramatically increase the processing time for family reunification, and we have to repeal Bill C-24.
Okay, and Julie, your answer now, please.
Thanks so much, Francis. My grandparents, when they came here, had a very clear path to citizenship, and I think we have to do that again. Right now, we have a little bit of a Swiss cheese model in terms of people not quite sure. There's certain rules for certain people, not for others. I think we need to create that clear path to citizenship for those who want to begin a new life here in Canada. So for me, the Liberal Party has just announced that they're going to almost double the amount of family reunification. We're also going to allow people who marry someone outside of Canada to immediately become permanent residents. And from my perspective, I think that a lot of what we've seen that has come in over the last few years has been people like PhDs. There's a lot of skills that we need. We're building out our country again. We're trying to sort of build in growth, and so we're also looking for skilled tradespeople. And I think
we have identified some similar issues among the four of you.
Yeah.
Let's talk about now. Do you challenge each other's ideas? How do your views differ?
Well, we have a huge backlog in family reunification. The Harper government installed a moratorium of 5,000 new cases to be processed each year. Well, that means that from January 1st to January 15th, the door closes on family reunification. Unfortunately, the Liberal plan increases the amount of people we bring in by 2 more weeks. So at the end of January, the moratorium closes the doors again. And I think what we really need to do is we have to process the applications for citizenship and family reunification much faster than we're doing right now. And that is really the issue. That's what I hear from constituents on a daily basis in my office, where they're stuck in limbo in the bureaucracy of citizenship and immigration. We need to shift the resources towards family reunification and processing citizenship applications.
Julie?
Yeah, so Francis, I'm not quite sure what Mr. Cash is talking about. I don't understand the extra 2 weeks. We are trying to expedite things as quickly as possible, both on family reunification in terms of people who are marrying outside. I would also add, what we have been stuck with for the last number of years is people who come here and work here for a certain number of years, 4 years, they have to go back to their home country before they can actually reapply to come back to Canada. And often those who try to apply for permanent residency, there is a test that they have to take that is very difficult for them to pass.
Absolutely.
And so for me, my mother, who's been here over 40 years, still does not speak very good English, but I'll tell you, she's contributed over 30 years to this country. And so I don't believe that you need to fully be able to master either English or French to be able to be a wonderful contributing Canadian to Canada.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the changes to citizenship have made it much more difficult for people who are here to gain their citizenship. And if we had these rules 40 years ago, our country would be much the worse for it. The issue of temporary foreign work.
Can I just get in here for a second?
If I just want to just finish my one point here, the issue of temporary foreign workers and the fact that we're bringing people here, they're building a life here, they're working hard, and then we're saying to them, "Oh, sorry, now you have to go home." We believe that those workers who are here, who are working, who are paying their taxes, who are building a life and contributing to Canadian society, should be given a path to citizenship, and that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree with the point you just made, Andrew, and the temporary workers program just seems like an exploitive program to me. But the other thing that you mentioned was this concept of C-24 creating two-tier citizenship, which I totally agree with. But aside from C-24 and the jingoistic, kind of politics of fear that underlies that, there's already a two-tier citizenship we have in this country. And that's because people who come to this country find it so difficult to join the mainstream, to work their way up. And part of the reason for that is because A, they can't get accredited for the professions that they've brought here and with the degrees, but also part of that is because it's so expensive to train yourself in this country. It's so expensive to get educated, and it's so expensive to move your way up in terms of bachelor's degrees, apprenticeships and skills, and that's why we strongly believe that we should move towards, within the next 4 years, completely eliminating post-secondary education, because that would move a long way towards eliminating the kind of two-tier citizenship we have in this society, whether it's because you're a person who wasn't born here or whether it's because you're born into poverty.
I think there is a pressing need, besides, of course, the other barriers that have been already mentioned, is many citizens don't have access to health care. I mean, health care could be a problem the day you arrive. It takes months, or I don't know exactly how the time limits are now. I am not in touch with that, but certainly it can take a long time before they will qualify for health care. And I mean, health care is taken for granted for Canadians, and immigrants who are here are stuck without health care to begin with. And it should be a priority to give health care, because maybe they can survive without education for a while, but healthcare, you need it right away. And I think that has to be addressed immediately.
I don't think that's true, Mr. Kalevar. But I mean, there certainly is the Conservatives certainly have brought in this program whereby if you are a failed refugee, you go between that process of being determined to be a failed refugee to actually eliminating all the appellate processes whereby you may actually regain that designation, then you lack health benefits. And that is certainly just one other way that Mr. Harper has divided this country into haves and have-nots. It's just terrible.
Basically, under Mr. Harper, with his agenda of cutting taxes, cut them down, what it meant is it has cut all kinds of services. And it has happened in the immigration department too. So they, it's a general theme.
I think you could see that we all think that we can do much better on immigration. I will tell you that to me, Canada's always depended on our immigrants for our prosperity. And I think that unless we get our immigration strategy right, and I think, by the way, we need to do far better than what we've ever done before. I think that we're into a whole new era. I think we need new rules. I think we need faster processing times. I think we need very, very deep settlement programs. And I think we need to sort of work on what Dan had mentioned around accreditation. But I'll tell you, there's a lot of skilled trade workers that are looking for that we need here as well, and I think that we need to sort of help welcome them. But the future prosperity of Canada depends on an excellent and strong immigration policy.
Okay, anyone else?
Well, I just want to mention one more thing because it has been lightly referenced, and that is cuts to the interim federal health program, which helps refugees who come to Canada get settled and until they get their provincial health benefits. And I think that this is one of the most mean-spirited cuts that the Harper government has implemented, and then they spent millions of dollars fighting this decision in court. And I'd just like to say to people who are watching that we will be re-implementing the interim federal health benefits for refugees.
Thank you, Andrew, for correcting the misimpression left by Dan.
Okay, let's move on to the next question here. This one is about childcare. And in Toronto and across the country, many parents complain about the lack of available daycare. There are 350,000 children under the age of 12 in this city and 65,000 licensed daycare spaces. So the universal childcare benefit was intended to support parental choice, but it doesn't actually address the issue. So what should we do about the shortage of affordable childcare? And Julie, let's start with you. You have 30 seconds.
Sure. As I mentioned, one of the core pieces of the Liberal platform is doubling our infrastructure investment over 10 years. This has never been done before. And so what this allows cities and provinces to do is to prioritize where they want to spend money. So what we could do is actually create additional childcare spaces, and we desperately need it. We need additional spaces. We need to make them accessible and affordable. And so our historic infrastructure plan that allows cities and provinces for 10 years to plan that will allow that to happen.
Okay, Dan, you're next.
Francis, that's a really good question, because what we really need to do is cancel the $4.5 billion universal child care benefit that the government spends on sending out checks to every family for about $160 so that you can deduct that from the maybe $1,200 you're spending on child care. So that's what I'm in favor of doing. I'm in favor of taking that $4.5 billion, adding another half billion, and right there you have the amount needed for the federal buy-in for a national child care program today, not in 8 years like the NDP, or not in terms of do whatever you want like the Liberals.
Okay, Chai.
Yeah, Quebec already has $15 a day child care, as I understand. I don't see why, if Quebec has it, the rest of the Canada can't afford it. And I fully support that particular program of the NDP. I think it's a good program. It deserves to be supported. But NDP has to get its act together and work to make sure that next time we don't get Harper as the Prime Minister.
Okay. Andrew, somewhat of a compliment there, but go ahead.
Well, listen, this is one of the fundamental issues facing families today, certainly in Toronto and right across the country, and that's why we are finally going to bring in a national universal childcare program in this country that's going to cost parents no more than $15 a day right across the country. This is going to be transformational for our city and for our country. I was talking to a family, a couple last night, and they both have good jobs, and they're spending $3,000 a month on childcare, and they're considering whether one of them has to stop working. And
the floor is open as well.
And I was talking to the woman of the couple, and she was saying, it's always women that have to make that sacrifice. And what we saw with the Quebec model is that in the first 10 years of their $7 a day childcare, between 30 and 70,000 women who otherwise couldn't enter the workforce were able to. So we're going to take that model and we're bringing it right across the country. And this is going to be an amazing new breath of fairness and equality for families right across the country. We need this to happen. Chambers of commerce, boards of trade, provincial governments, municipalities, they're clamoring for affordable childcare.
Why are you waiting 8 years?
We're going to deliver.
Why are you waiting 8 years, Andrew?
We're not waiting.
You are,
8 years.
because by 2020, you're going to spend $2.5 billion. That's 50% of the cost of the federal buy-in of a $10 billion program. And I can tell you the reason why you're doing that is because you refuse to raise corporate income taxes or anything else beyond what you could, and you're leaving $4 billion on the table. So, you should be straight with the people who are watching this, and that is that our government has lost $40 billion in spending power since Harper and since the last 10 years. And because the parties to my right, both figuratively and literally, refuse to properly fund our government or buy into a national daycare program tomorrow, not in 8 years, we're still going to have devastating families by 2025, according to the NDP plan, and by the Liberal plan, we're just going to get checked. Well, no, everybody doesn't understand, because you're saying it's going to be transformational, and it won't be until 2025 on your agenda.
No, in the first year, there will be affordable childcare spaces created under our plan. Everybody
Who
understands.
Who are the lucky people?
Everybody understands that
Can I get my kid in there? I can't wait.
Dan, may I? Everyone understands you can't press a button and create a million childcare.
It's called taxes. It's called properly funding your government.
Okay, let's let Julie.
Yes, thank you so much.
Actually, he did sort of attack the program, and I wouldn't mind an opportunity first to explain the program.
Quick response.
Thank you so much. Look, everyone understands you're not going to press a button and have 1 million spaces on October 20th. We have to build this out. Unfortunately, governments, both conservative and liberal, over the last 30 years have promised childcare spaces and never delivered. We are finally going to do it, and we're going to do it in a very measured, progressive, and fast way, and we're going to start right away. And there will be childcare spaces right away, and they will be costing no more than $15 a day
I'm going
right
to just
across
remind
the country.
the audience that in 2005, Prime Minister Martin actually tried to introduce a national daycare plan, but it was the NDP government that did not support us. The government fell, and we ended up with the Harper government for 10 years. The Canada Child Benefit, the only reason we're actually we've decided we're going to put more money into parents' pockets right now, and what that means, just so you know, $67,000 is the average household income in Davenport. So what that means with a family of 2 kids is an additional $8,100 a year, so about $700 a month. So everybody wants a national daycare plan. I want it now.
That's why it's so,
I want
that's
it
why
now.
It's so popular among people.
But the Liberal Party, the reason we haven't proposed is right now the provinces don't have the money. So right now under the NDP plan is what you have to do is you have to get provinces to fund 40% of it. They don't have it. So what we're doing is we're putting money. You want to let me finish, Andrew? We let you finish. If you could let me finish. So that means that we're putting immediately dollars into parents' pockets right now because we know how expensive childcare is. I will also tell you that if we want to have national daycare, we should elect more women to Parliament. We've been at around 25% for a good 30 years, and I think that if we actually want to have national daycare, we should be electing more women to Parliament across Canada.
Well, I totally agree with that. I totally agree with that, and we've got a record number of women running for the NDP.
Okay, I'm going to let Chai jump in. He hasn't had a chance yet.
Awesome.
Go ahead, Chai.
I'm really glad to see this interesting debate among themselves, and I really support, as I say, the better child care across the country. But having said that, these are details. The important issue for this next Parliament is proportional representation. None of the leaders in their debates or in their interviews stress that.
Okay, let's focus on the childcare issue
Well, yeah,
right now.
but
We
I'm
can
saying-
talk about that
yeah,
after.
I'm saying that without proportional representation, we will end up probably having Mr. Harper as Prime Minister again, and all this will be wasted time on details that Harper will never agree to.
Well, look, we're not going to probably get Mr. Harper again, not with him riding at 30% of the polls for
Well,
the last.
who knows?
Can I finish now? Sorry, for the last 3 months. But the problem, Julie, I have with the Liberal plan is that you guys are going to take $20 billion and spend it on sending checks out, which totally ignores like a basic economic principle of economies of scale, what you can create with $20 billion. And secondly, what's the purpose of government? Just to give you money back? We're going to take your money and give it back to you with $20 billion. First of all, a fully funded national daycare plan is about $10 billion. And then you could move on to free post-secondary education. I don't quite understand why this program that the Liberals are going to go into further debt for us because they also refuse to raise enough funds for the Government of Canada to properly operate, why this would be in anyone's interest. It's not going to create anything. It's a very market-based approach to a public issue of immense importance.
Julie, go ahead and respond.
Yeah, I mean, my response to that is, as I mentioned, I actually think that the reason we don't have national daycare is because I do think that the provinces don't have money right now. In the interim, what you do is you actually, because the middle class is so strapped for funds right now, you put more money immediately into their pocket. I'll let you know, I will be fighting. If I'm blessed enough to become the next member of parliament, I will be fighting for a national daycare program as quickly as possible.
Well, we have one on offer right now, and
One
listening
that
to my
doesn't
listening
provide
to my friends,
a spot for 8 years.
listening to my friends here discuss the issue of daycare, it's pretty clear that this is a major issue, and we need a bold plan that starts on October 20th, and that's what Tom Mulcair's plan is.
Apparently
and we
it
can
doesn't
do
start
it.
on
And
October
we
because
can do
you
it.
can't press the button, can you?
We can start right
you
away.
couldn't press it in your platform.
Okay, why don't we move on to our next question? That was a good, healthy discussion, and I think there's more to come as well, because this next issue is always controversial, and it is an issue that hits at the heart of our city for sure. So the TTC is facing yet another budget shortfall. While it remains the lowest subsidized public transit system in North America, gridlock is blamed for costing billions to the city's economy. And many critics say the answer is a well-funded and comprehensive transit strategy for the GTA and beyond. So what role should the federal government play in fixing Toronto's transit woes? Chai, let's begin with you with this
Thank
question.
you. Well, my suggestion has been for quite some time that firstly, none of the leaders spoke about the high carbon footprint that Canadians have in the world. And there is a law called polluter must pay. If you apply must pay to cars, that would mean bigger cars will pay more tax. That means we'll have money for building transit, and it will reduce the size of the cars, and reducing size of the cars will give room on the road for building bike lanes. That is a simple way to proceed, but nobody is listening. Their ears are plugged. I don't know with what.
Okay, thank you, Andrew.
Well, this is the fundamental issue in our city. I was on the Dufferin bus the other day, and it's just like packed to the rafters. There's women with strollers, there's elderly people, there's young people trying to get to school, and it's on everybody's mind. And I think one of the issues that cities have been asking for is a stable federal partner that's going to come in with long-term predictable funding for public transit that isn't going to be tied to political games. It's not going to be tied to an ideology, and that's exactly what the NDP plan does. We finally, for the first time, a federal government is going to provide stable, long-term, multi-billion-dollar funding for public transit right across this country.
Okay, thank you. Julie.
Yes, well, the infrastructure plan. So I often say this at the doors. I often say that we're the only OECD country that doesn't provide long-term stable funding for transit, which is Canada. And so the infrastructure plan that has been proposed for 10 years to almost double the infrastructure funding in this country. So we moved from 65 billion to 120 billion. That is to provide cities like Toronto with the opportunity to create a vision for transit in our city. The difference, I believe, between the NDP and our plan is that we're providing more money more rapidly. We understand that there is a huge issue, and the money can be used not only for transit but also to break gridlock, as well as for bike lanes. It's whatever priorities the cities and the provinces decides.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Dan.
Yeah, thanks, Francis. So I came up here today. Today we're in an area near my father lives. It's around Leslie and York Mills, and I came down from Dundas and Dufferin. And it took me about an hour and a half, and a major delay at York Mills Station, just waiting for a bus. This has to change. Mm-hmm. And what my friends from the New Democrats and Liberals are talking about is just a little bit of what needs to be done. When they like to roll out their long-term, the reason they like to stress long-term funding is because that's only when the numbers get big. If you stretch it over 10 years or 20 years for the Liberals or the NDP, what you should ask for is, number one, how much money are they proposing for the first year? Like the Greens, $6.4 billion. And two, given that Toronto is about 10% of the population, we're not going to get it all for ourselves. So when you start spreading it around, how much would Toronto really get? And under the Liberal and NDP plans, Toronto would get, if it's going to be fair, about $150 million a year. And just, for an example, it costs about $200, maybe $250 to build one light rail station. So this is not going to do much, except if you're going to come back in 20 years, according to their plan, and you'll see, wow, about $10 billion or $20 billion has been spent.
The floor is open now.
What we need, and this is what we need a firm commitment of funding every year, so that we can do significant changes to our infrastructure. And like Julie said, bikes, we need water and waste treatment infrastructure, not just transit. We need walking paths, we need remediation of brownfields, and so that's where the Green Party comes from.
Sorry?
If I may just add, I am probably the only candidate who's canvassing in Davenport on a bike. I don't think I have seen any of these guys riding a bike. These guys are polluting the environment, causing climate change.
How do you know that,
and
Chai? Like, you have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay, fine.
You don't.
Well,
you're just
fine.
sending these things out there.
but
You
that's
don't know.
true.
I've been biking up and down this ride,
Well, I'm
and it
glad
really
you are.
offends me to hear you say just
Okay,
one more
maybe
lie,
Dan is excellent.
one
I'm
more lie
talking
from
of
your
the two.
mouth.
No, it's not a lie. It's a fact that at least the other two are definitely the major parties.
Yes, I use my feet. I actually spend
That's
most of my
called
time going
active
across this
transportation.
riding going door
That's
to
not
door.
polluting too.
And I don't
Mostly
mind
they are
using my
coming by
feet.
car.
You can't drive up to a
It
door,
might not
Chai.
be a bike.
No, I know that. We do that too. But definitely I am doing it by bike and transit, and I have seen others driving cars, and that's the fact.
Okay, so the infrastructure spending that the Liberal Party is proposing over 10 years is split into green, social, and transit. So I'm not going to go into all of it right now because I suspect that we're going to bring it up through the course of the debate. But to Dan's point, our federal investment in public transit will actually triple in 4 years and quadruple in 10 years. So it's not just a tiny bit of money, it's actually substantial. What's special about this for me is I'm looking for places like the City of Toronto to come up with a vision for the city. It allows them to actually map out, well, how do we finally break gridlock? How do we actually put in safe bike lanes? How do we actually, map out the TTC route or grow it out? Right now on Queen Street, no one can get onto the streetcars right now. On DuPont Street, well, there's so much traffic that the buses can't move. My mom, every time she tries to go along DuPont Street to go shopping, she says it takes her an hour to get anywhere. So it actually allows the city the space and the opportunity to actually create a vision for how the infrastructure needs of the city can move from the 1970s to the 21st century.
Well, I just would add that, for decades now, public transit has been a political football. It's been used as a ribbon-cutting exercise for federal politicians, and that's got to stop, and that's going to stop. The NDP government is going to be that stable, predictable ally and partner for public transit in this city and the major cities right across this country. We understand that this is fundamental to how we grow our economy and also how we deal with our issues around climate change and greenhouse gas emissions. This is why I fought so hard to get the Up Express to be electrified. This is why I continue to fight the issue of the use of diesel trains in our community, and I'm proud of the record that we all have, the community and myself and my office, in fighting for clean public transit in our community. And I want to tell folks who are watching that fight will continue, and we will succeed.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's just, I just have a couple of points I want to make. And one is that unless this printout I printed from the Liberal website is wrong, it says public infrastructure starts at 1.6 billion and goes down to 1.1 billion. Mm-hmm. So I didn't print that up. It looks like your investments go down over 4 years, Julie. Mm-hmm. In terms of the UP Express, you know, it's funny because we had an NDP prop up a Liberal government for 2 years in Toronto, while every year the Davenport's MPP could have walked out and said, you know what, it's the price of my support for your government, Kathleen Wynne, to change the UP Express into an electrified express. And that hasn't happened. So this fight goes on for clean trains in Davenport, but it's an ineffective fight. And I don't know why, Andrew, you didn't just walk across your hallway, which you used to share with Jonah Shine, and just say, you know what, walk out of that government. But I have a suspicion the reason is because your party leaders discipline you know, Thomas Mulcair would discipline you if you did something. Andrew Horvath would discipline Jonah Shine if he did something in terms of standing up for the members of their riding. And so, you know, when it comes to transit, I ask you to look at the Green Platform and vote for something different. And when it comes to free votes for your MPs, votes so that so your MP can stand up for their convictions and isn't going to be disciplined or tossed out of caucus for doing something against the party leader, I ask you to look at the Greens' approach to governance.
I'm very proud of the record that we have in Davenport for championing clean trains and clean public transit. And I have to say that I think the work we've all done together has pushed the issue of electrification of the Up Expresses, pushed the issue of the electrification of the GO line, the Barrie GO line, and that pressure needs to continue, and that's something that we all do together, and that's something that we will succeed at.
So Francis, I haven't had a chance to actually respond to this. Years ago, I actually was an initial member of the Clean Train Coalition, which actually advocated for immediate electrification. I actually was part of a trio who actually wrote the initial letters to the Minister of the Environment for immediate electrification and to make sure that the residents of Davenport would actually benefit from it. And I'm very active right now on the Davenport overpass discussions that are underway. I will tell you, though, to my colleague, my NDP colleague, my understanding is that when there was a minority government in 2011, Laura Albanese, who was our MPP there, tried to push forward a bill and she around immediate electrification, asked the NDP, Jonah Shine, then for his support, and he did not support it. And so what I would say is, why is it when the NDP was asked to step up to the plate around clean trains, they did not do that? I will also say, just because I want to be respectful to Dan's comment about my tripling of infrastructure investment over 4 years and quadrupling over 10 years, I don't want the public to believe that I'm misleading them. I'm sorry, I actually have not read that document that came out. No, I trust that you have there, but I will tell you that this is the documentation that I have received from the party, but I know that it's substantial investment, and we're very much committed to improving public transit and to ensuring ongoing funding.
Well, what I haven't heard from any of you is, and really at the heart of the question is, who will be that advocate for the TTC? Who will be the advocate for
NDP
Toronto
is going
Transit?
to be the advocate for Toronto Transit. We need a stable, predictable ally in a federal government. We haven't had that for decades, whether it was Conservative or Liberal government. The TTC has always been a political football, and politicians have used it as a ribbon-cutting exercise. That's got to stop, and that's going to stop.
Francis, the Liberal Party will be a huge advocate. Again, that's why we've introduced this historic plan. It is to allow cities to be able to create a vision and a plan for 10 years. We've needed for a long time. I'm actually appalled that it's taken so long for us to actually do this, and delighted that we've actually introduced it. And it starts on day one on October 20th.
For the last almost 20 years, when Mike Harris cancelled the building of the Eglinton subway plans, we haven't had any transit built, and that is a big 20 years lost. And always the complaint has been that we have no money. I'm saying in Canada we are used to the concept of progressive income tax. Why can't we get used to the idea of progressive gas tax And if we do that, we can get money right away from the cars and reduce their size, reduce their pollution, and everything else will fall in place. The problem is progressive gas tax means these parties are afraid to take on the auto industry, the auto unions, the oil industry, the oil workers. That is the problem.
You know, it's
the
just
establishment is stacked against progressive gas tax.
Okay, that's just not true, Chai.
No, it
First
is
of all,
true.
the Green
No,
Party.
let me finish.
Okay, go ahead.
I've never interrupted.
Go ahead.
And the point is, if we get that money from this way, we will also help in reducing climate change. Nobody is relating their personal responsibility to the climate. Driving a car, especially a big car, one person in it is highly irresponsible, and these parties are refusing to say that to that one lone guy driving 4x4 SUV or Hummers.
Okay, saying the Green Party doesn't care about polluters' pay would be like saying the Conservatives don't care about rich people.
I've never heard it from Elizabeth May in any of the debates.
Okay, now you're interrupting me.
Yeah,
okay?
I know.
But one of the things that you asked, Francis, was who's going to be a champion for the TTC? No one's going to sit here and say they're not going to be a champion. I think the whole reason why we have infrastructure plans for transit is because we live in this city and we want we've seen the TTC just stagnate and degenerate compared to the kind of people that use it. And so people, I don't know how many of us took the TTC up. I know I did, but I can understand if maybe one of us didn't, because the idea of staying like an hour and a half to 2 hours in the TTC might have been a bit foreboding. But we all should really be taking these kind of rides around the city so that we understand how important it is, because that's how you become a real champion. When you walk the walk, then you know you're talking the talk.
Yeah, and that's, I think, part of this question is who is going to talk the talk, because while everyone can be a champion, when it comes down to it, who's going to show Toronto the money?
Well, what you need MPs, again, who are willing to speak their minds, who don't have to take orders from on high. Because when the leader of a party tells you you have to do X, and you've told your riding that you're going to do Y, you're going to be a champion, and then he goes, you know what, we're going to cut that TTC funding, we're not going to come through with it, then you have to be able to say to your leader, you know what, this is something I disagree with because I campaigned on it, my community depends on it, and this is something I'm going to fight for. Wow. And that's why the top-down party system, which both Thomas Mulcair and Justin Trudeau are still loyal to, is a danger to our whole system of governance, aside from PR, which I totally agree with Mr. Kalevar on.
Yeah, well,
I would say if BC Liberals can have carbon tax for $30 a ton, why are my big party friends here who are supposedly progressive still going for cap and trade, which didn't do anything for Europe for the last 10 years?
So are you talking about me?
Okay, let's
the
let
NDP.
I know, I'm talking about
hold
the big
on.
parties.
Andrew, I know you wanted to have one more comment, so let's.
I can say that first of all that as a candidate in the 2011 election, I decided to run in part to push the issue of public transit at the federal level and to get a voice for Toronto in Ottawa. And what you're seeing in our platform is exactly that. And finally, I just want to say that with regards to electrification of the Up Express, I think that what we also have to ask ourselves, well, what government made the decision to use diesel? What government continues to insist that diesel is the okay way to go through Davenport? It certainly wasn't the NDP.
It was you guys supported
the
them
Liberal
the whole
government
2 years.
for
You didn't get
many
Final
any
years.
comment, please, to Julie.
No, it's just we're starting to get into a different topic when we start talking about sort of open government or decision making by MPs. So the Liberal Party, Justin Trudeau was on the National saying that in terms of the centralization of power in the PMO, that's something that he's going to release. In terms of, we've introduced around 30 changes around democratic renewal to try to make sure that we have Parliament working for Canadians again, as well as we have committed to a process within 18 months to seeing how we should be changing our first past the post system, as well as one of the other 30 changes is that there will be far more free votes for their MPs. So I know that this is something that's been looked at. I know I can tell you I'm an activist. I've been a champion for many issues in my community, and I would like to go to Ottawa because I'm looking to create change. I'm not looking to to not be an active member on that.
Okay, let's move on to our next question here. So in the wake of the 2008 recession, governments around the world went into deficits as they used public spending to stimulate the economy. The government just announced that they have balanced the federal budget a year early. There is a debate as to whether our sluggish economy needs government stimulus. With the national debt at $612 billion, should we go back to deficits and see the debt rise, or do you support balancing the budget? And Andrew, you can begin with this answer.
Well, this is a great question. You know, Tommy Douglas brought in universal Medicare in Saskatchewan while also running 17 consecutive balanced budgets. That's a phenomenal record of being very careful with people's money. And what we're saying here today is, you know, we need to make historic investments in housing and in public transit and in infrastructure. And, you know, maybe it's time for corporations to start paying their fair share instead of loading the entire debt onto the backs of 25-year-olds who are going to have to pay it back when they're 50. That's not what we're going to do. Thomas Mulcair has been very clear that the time of loading more debt onto the backs of young people is over.
Okay, Julie.
Sure, thank you. You know, the infrastructure plan, I think everybody knows this, the infrastructure plan that we're proposing will see us go into deficit for 3 years. So we have a $2 trillion economy here in Canada. It would be a $10 billion deficit for 3 years, and then we'd go back to balanced budgets in 2019-2020. We're making a very deliberate decision, and I know that it's been very much supported by David Dodge, by Kevin Lynch, by many other sort of very, very respected economists in Canada. We're making a deliberate decision to say we have a fairly flat economy. We really need to stimulate it. We need to create jobs, and we need to finally get going on creating the infrastructure we need to move people and goods in Canada today. So right now we have one of the lowest GDP to debt ratio in Canada. So what I'm trying to say is just respond to this comment about we're not going to be sort of adding a lot more debt levels to 25.
You know what, you'll have a chance to respond. Your 30 seconds is well past, but we will have an open discussion, not to worry. But Dan, you can pick it up there.
Thanks, Francis. I think that tied into this question is really the issue of the next 10 to 20 years, and that is how do we properly fund our government? And going into deficit unnecessarily, or not having a bold social program and bold investments into what we need to do, which is the approach of the Liberals and the NDP, that's the wrong approach. When Andrew Cash talks about making corporations pay their fair share, they're talking about raising corporate interest rates by 2%, and that's just not their fair share. That still leaves them with hundreds of billions of dollars on the table. So if we want to really do big things in Canada in the public sphere, we need to raise corporate income taxes, take bold steps, but also manage our books properly, because we don't need huge deficits. We just need the proper approach.
Okay, Chai.
Thank you. Well, definitely, if one wanted to borrow money, this is the right time to borrow because the interest rates are pretty low. Mm-hmm. That is definitely true. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, there is no reason why, when we have minimum wage laws to fight poverty, why these people, none of them even talk about it, can't have maximum wage laws for the rich to not splurge the planet's limited resources on their fancies. I think it is necessary to start addressing the wasteful use of money by the top 10%, shall we say, who according to some people get most of the growth in the last so long. Okay. Maximum wage law, not even talked by the Green Party or any other party.
The floor is open.
Well, I think Chai is saying something interesting here, and what he's pointing to is the ratio between executive pay and, let's say, frontline worker pay. And if you look at a graph, what you'd see is the ratio of executive pay to frontline worker pay has really diverged in the last 10 years. And at the same time, the rate of taxation of corporations and the extremely wealthy has gone way down. And so that's what we need to correct. We're not going to have exorbitant pay structures at the executive level if we're actually asking corporations to act like corporate citizens. And that's why I talked about, again, the $40 billion taxation gap that we've gone through since Chrétien's age. And the reason why we don't have the kind of bold approaches that the Green Party is calling for by the main parties is because they don't have the money for it. So even if they wanted to spend the money on nationalized daycare at $10 billion, or even just the federal buy-in at $5 billion, or if they wanted to eliminate post-secondary education, which could be one of the best things for our economy, free trades, and let people say, you know what, this dead-end job, this precarious job that I have, I can now afford to go back to school because it's free, and we're going to really grow this economy. But what we have here is a $20 billion program by the Liberals on checks for people, which aren't even going to pay for their daycare, or $4 billion left on the books, the surplus the NDP is projecting. Like, this is the new Conservative Party and the afraid party. We've got to do something bold.
I'm glad that Dan's brought up the issue of precarious work, and I thank him for that, because this is one of the big issues that people in the GTA are faced with. Over 50% of people don't have stable full-time jobs. They're working part-time, they're working on contract, they're freelance, they're self-employed, or they may even be working full-time, but their job is not stable. They don't have access to a pension. They have no extended health benefits. And what we're proposing in our platform is really transformational for precarious workers. This is why universal childcare is so necessary. This is why we've rolled out the beginnings of a pharmacare program. This is why we need to raise the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour, to set a benchmark for the provinces to push up, to create upward pressure on wages. We need to deal with the issue of precarious work. Our labor laws, our policies are stuck in the 20th century when people, got out of school and had worked for the same company for 40 years and retired with a pension. That is not happening, and certainly in Davenport, and I see this constantly. You could be a white-collar professional and be a precarious worker. You could be a taxi driver, a carpenter, a web designer, or a nurse, and you don't have any stability. And that is what we're focused on in our platform, building out a stronger floor upon which all Canadians can stand.
So Francis, I think actually one of the best ways we can actually support precarious workers is actually by providing more job opportunities, which is what the bold infrastructure plan that has never been announced before, I think will do. So if you're trying to stimulate the economy, you try to invest in the infrastructure. And so I think that creating more jobs will help precarious workers. I too, like Dan, am looking for bold moves, and I think that this is one of them. I just wanted to talk for 2 seconds about your original question about the deficit. $10 billion is not a massive deficit of when you have a $2 trillion economy. We have low interest rates. We have a low GDP to what is it? GDP to
debt ratio.
Debt ratio. Thank you very much. And I think that people should look at it as investing a little bit in their house. So we're investing in the infrastructure we need to be able to continue to keep the government, the economy going.
The whole problem with free money, Julie, we experienced that in the debt in 2008. When interest rates go too low and you just start saying, hey, let's just mortgage everything, it's free money, then you can have a crisis later on.
We're not mortgaging everything.
No, but you are. You're putting $30 billion on top of the
money.
But look, just because you can do something, doesn't mean you have to.
It's manageable, it's contained, it's within 3 years. We're going back to balanced budget. It is small. It's like putting in a new kitchen.
Doesn't mean you have to, Julie. You can raise taxes on the corporates. You don't even want to touch. Corporations are sitting on $630 billion of wealth that they've accumulated in the last 10 years, and they're doing nothing to it. Mark Carney calls it dead money, and we're just letting that corpse sit there. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to precarious work, the reason why I mentioned it, we have an MP here who's, at least in terms of giving lip service and showing how much he's, in his speeches, how much he's cared about precarious work for 4 years. And it must be embarrassing to run as an NDP MP with this platform, which leaves $4 billion on the table doing nothing, which has a childcare plan which is going to roll out over almost a decade. And which has a pharmacare plan which isn't costed in this document at all that they put out, which they just announced after they fully cost it, and a $15 minimum wage, which the Green Party completely agrees with. Let's bring it in as a way to influence the provinces. But you have to admit, it's only going to affect about 1% of workers. So where's the big ideas? How come Tommy Douglas's party has become the party of little tiny ideas?
Well,
That's
actually,
a shame, because
actually,
the big issue of today is new programs in the public sphere, not little bitsy things.
Yeah, just let Andrew
Well, I'm
respond.
very proud of the platform of the NDP because it addresses precarious work in a fundamental and foundational way. Universal childcare, pharmacare, the raising of wages for some workers and setting a benchmark, lifting seniors out of poverty, investing historic investments in public transit and infrastructure, and having those investments be very, very long-term and stable and predictable. Investments in arts and culture. These are the things that are going to help stabilize a lot of precarious workers' lives. And of course, these are major steps forward. And I think that this is a platform that's going to change a lot of people's lives and make life a lot better for many, many Canadians. This is a transformational platform, and I'm extremely proud of it.
Chai.
Yeah, well, I'm really glad that Andrew has done some work on precarious work. But let me point out, all work will become precarious if we do not take care of our polluted, pained, precarious planet. None of the parties have shown any sense of urgency to look at the planet as a whole. And the facts are, the polar bears are moving south, the penguins are moving north, and all animals in the tropics are moving away from the equator. This is happening. And we may have houses to sit on so we don't move that easily unless somebody bombs you, but the animals are showing which way the planet is going, and a lot of lot of areas on the planet are becoming unlivable.
So you were lucky you got to sneak in a bit of environment in there, but unfortunately that wraps up our Q&A time. I know time goes by really quick, and we need to get to closing statements now. This is going to be done in the reverse order of the opening statement. So Chai, your time begins now.
Thank you very much. Well, I have been an environmentalist for quite some time. I am the only candidate who attended both the Earth Summits in Rio in 1992 and 2012. I wish at least one of them was there at 2012 Earth Summit. I missed them. The fact is, I have written a book called Climate Change in the Nuclear Age. We haven't even touched nuclear age in this debate. And they are building a nuclear waste dump right beside Lake Huron.
Okay, thank you, Chai. That is your time. Dan Stein, you're next.
Thank you, Francis, and I want to thank Rogers. Hopefully they'll consider putting it online for everyone to see. I'd just suggest that as a good idea to be a good corporate citizen. I want to thank you who tuned in to listening to all this, and if you want to find out more about the Green Party, it's danstein.ca in terms of my candidacy. And I hope you'll join me and the people who support me in helping to grow the Green Party in Davenport and have a huge effect on the formation of our next government and the direction of our next government.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Julie, you're next.
Thank you, Francis. I also want to thank you for hosting, and to my colleagues for joining me today. As I mentioned at the beginning, the kind of Canada that we will live in will depend on the outcome of this election. The kind of Canada that I will fight for is a Canada that represents freedom, progress, opportunity, fairness, and compassion. And that's it. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Julie. And Andrew.
Thanks. Well, you know, folks, this is our time. This is our country's time. Our plan is transformational. It's transformational for families, for our city, and for our country. I'm urging folks to come and help us out. We've got a couple weeks left. Let's work hard. Let's work hard together. On October 20th, we can stand with Tom Mulcair as the Prime Minister of Canada and finally begin to repair the damage Stephen Harper has done to our country and build the Canada of our dreams. Thanks a lot.
Andrew, thank you. And thank you all to all of the candidates and to you for watching at home. Thank you for joining us on the local campaign. Air times for this debate and others can be found at rogerstv.com. I'm Francis D'Souza. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.